Most people think you need the perfect location to get a cinematic interview, but most of my shoot happens in offices, conference rooms, and sometimes even living rooms in people's homes, spaces with uncontrolled light or limited options. And so how do you take a space like this and create a shot that feels natural and controlled? Well, it comes down to understanding what you want to achieve and making the right decisions with framing, lighting, contrast, and how you shape the light within the space, based on the environment and the gear you have available. Let's dive right in. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know that most of my work happens out of state. So I travel everywhere and I show up on location typically without any previous knowledge or having seen the space that I'm going to use. In some cases, and I'm starting to do this more and more often, I get still shots from my client's phone that they just take with their phone, just so I can have an idea of a space. And this is the case on this one where I was able to receive some images, but that's about it. That's the extent of my prep that I get as far as location scouting. This is a recent shoot, and I had to do 5 interviews into this room. And a lot of times, based on the schedule, based on the deliverables of what I need to get that day, I will think about, okay, I have 5 interviews. Realistically, with the time that I have, how many setups do I want to create? Ideally, it'd be awesome if I can create 5 different setups. Everybody has a different look, but that's not the case most of the time. And so I first walk into this room and a lot of things come into my mind as far as what's possible, what angle I'm going to use. All those things kind of come flooding, and I have to kind of start making decisions. And one of the first one is, okay, realistically, how many setups do I want to do or can I do in this particular space? And for this instance, we had 5 interviewees, and I was like, man, if I can get 2 setups, so if I can shoot 3 people in one setup, 2 in the other, one look right, one look left, then I'll have enough diversity to edit a piece where it doesn't look too repetitive. So that was the goal with this particular space, was to create 2 setups. And the next thing I do here is really start looking for depth, looking for angles that would create a look that I want. And in this room, we also have this big window that brings all this daylight. And I have to make some decision based on that window. Do I completely close it off? Do I use the natural light? And what does that mean based on where the sun is right now? Where is it going to be in about an hour when I'm done setting up? And where is that sun going to be in a couple hours when we're doing the interview number 4 and interview number 5? How is that affecting the levels in this room? Some of the best look that I get when I do an interview is to shoot towards a corner, because that will give me more depth than if I shoot towards a flat wall. So instead of shooting directly towards that black wall, for example, if I shoot more at an angle, whether towards this corner or towards that corner, then it will give me a little bit more flexibility as far as the look and how depth is perceived. So when we talk about depth, I look for layers of different things so that we can create different contrast, different brightness level in all those different layers. And that's what creates or amplify the depth. Before I set up a lot of things, I always want to put a camera up right away with my monitor, just so I can find my framing, because I don't have enough lights to light up an entire scene or an entire room. And I need to be very selective on how I'm going to use the lights that I bring with me to light up my subject and the background or whatever I need to do. And so I need to really frame the shot first, and that will kind of dictate where I need to place light so that I can create the look that I want. And so that's going to be the first step. It's going to be putting up the camera in that corner and finding that particular frame. As far as the window is concerned, it tells me 2 things. I want to use it as much as possible. And I use an app to kind of tell me where the sun is and where it's going to be in a few hours, so that I know that in a couple hours, that sun is not going to just come blaring through that window. Because if that's the case, then I have to deal with that window very differently. But in this particular instance, the sun was going to come and go, but like, by the time we were ready to shoot, the sun was actually above the house and kind of shining down from the top and not directly through those windows. So I was pretty comfortable with the levels not moving too much. And I believe it was also a pretty cloudy day that day. And so we felt pretty comfortable that the levels were not going to just fluctuate, because that's something I try to avoid. I want to have as much control as possible throughout the shoot. And one of the worst thing that can happen is if that sun keeps coming in and out. And I've had situation, I can show you some videos if you look on the channel, where I use automatic ND filters on my camera to kind of level the fact that the sun was coming in and out of the clouds. And so that's something that I need to address right away, is figure out, okay, can I control this window? Can I maintain it? And it's not going to cause any problem. And in this particular case, we felt pretty good. I have to first decide what my camera settings are going to be. And if you heard me talk before, camera settings for me is a creative decision, not a technical decision. So I have to decide how much depth of field I want. So what's my aperture? I shoot with a lens that opens to a 1.3. So I can create a lot of really shallow depth of field. Typically in an interview, I've done it and I'll probably do it again. I shoot wide open. It could be dangerous depending on the person. Like if the person is moving a lot and you open at 1.3, they're going to come in and out of focus. I don't shoot anything in autofocus. I'm old school. I don't like autofocus for a lot of reasons. That could be for a different video. But especially for an interview where the person is really not moving much, I don't want the camera to ever have to struggle to figure out where am I looking, what's the focus. And yes, I've experienced that. And if you're using autofocus and it works for you, great. Whatever you want to do, that's not, all I'm doing is sharing my experience and how I work. And I don't want to shoot my interviews in autofocus. So shooting it at 1.3 is a little tricky. So typically I would set my aperture to like a 2 or 2.8. And that will kind of show me the levels in the room and what I need to do. And then my shutter, is set to 60. I shoot 24 frames or 2397 or whatever it is, 2398. And my shutter is set to 1/60th, but I can adjust it. In this particular case, there's no reason that I wouldn't be able to touch my shutter. There's no monitors behind there that's going to create some flickers or any light source that I need to be concerned about. But I like using my ND filter. So I'm going to leave my shutter at 1/60th of a second, and then I'm going to apply some ND filters so that I have room to adjust my levels without moving my contrast. I hope that makes sense. For some reason, the sun comes out and all the levels in the room go up, then I can just add a couple more stops of ND and the levels will come down, but everything will come down. And so the contrast, the separation between, let's say, her shirt and this wall will not change. It will not, it won't become more contrasty. All it will do is it will rise up when there's the sun coming out, and then it will go down when I add more ND filter. But that distance, the contrast between the dark and the brightness will stay the same. And so that's pretty important to me to keep my contrast consistent. So that's what I'll do. I'll add a few stops of ND and kind of look at it and make a decision on how much ND I need to apply. And that will now I do all of that before we turn the lights on, right? Because I have to do my exposure before we turn the lights on. The lights are going to be added levels where we need it. And so once I've put enough ND filter where I feel like that's the level that I want on those back walls, then I can look and say, okay, now that I have my frame, now that we have the exposure for the room, we're not going to touch our camera settings anymore. Now we can start placing lights where we need it and change the intensity of that light to expose our subject and the corners or whatever else to the right levels. If the window is here and that's my key side, I don't want them to look this way because I want the dark side of their face to be towards the camera. So I need them to rotate and face that window so that the key side now is on this side and the fill side is here. And so that dictates the position of that interview. So that's already determined by the window. Like I, I don't want to say I don't have a choice, but really the choice is made for me, or else I'm going to be in a world of hurt trying to fight all that daylight coming in. The person is going to sit here in this particular chair. I'm going to sit in this one, and you can see that the camera is, I'm going to be sitting here. The camera is on my left, which means the person opposite that I'm going to interview is now looking at me, and that's going to create the fill side on this side, and then the key side is on this side, which is exactly what we want. So now I need to enhance the key in order to control it. In this particular setup, I used a 4x6 diffuser, which I start to use more and more. The size of the diffuser allows me to have lights not just on their face, not just like if it was a matte box or a soft box that would be circular, not just on their face, but I can light up that whole key side. And so now their whole body is getting lit. And to me, it creates something a lot more natural than just the softbox. And so I like using it when I can. So here we can see the key light, and it's set to 56K, right? 5600 Kelvin, just so daylight, it just matches what's coming through the window. And I have a little bit of distance. I want to spread that beam as much as possible on the diffuser to have as big of a light source as possible. But when you do that, and that's the difference between using a diffuser like this or using a softbox, what happens here is then the light is able to escape, and it spills onto the rest of the room. And that's why I have this neg, this black piece of fabric here to control the spill, because a lot of the light was going around the diffuser and actually hitting not this corner, but the actual hallway behind the person. And we could see the levels, going up and up. And so by just placing this neg right there, we kind of block that spill from happening. And that's really what a softbox does. The only difference between a softbox and doing it this way is the softbox contain the spill. Now it's limited as far as the distance between the light source and the diffuser, and that's why doing it this way, I can put my diffuser further away from the light source, creating a bigger light source, which makes it nice and soft. But now I got to deal with the spill. And in this particular case, I just needed one on that side. It didn't spill onto the other side. So that worked out pretty well. And you can see that he's getting all this level from the key light, but it continues and it floods them all over here, which is what I want with that long diffuser. On this one, you can see a little bit of levels on his hair, and that's from the tube light right here. It's not much, but it's enough to, again, all you're trying to do with the backlight and the edge light is to create a little bit of a separation between the background and the subject. In this case, there's already separation just because of the color change. And but the only way I could have made that more with that tube would be to bring the tube a lot closer. And that would have helped a little bit more. And then here we can really see the contrast between the key side and the fill side. And again, I felt like that was enough contrast, didn't need to add anything. If you feel like you need more or less, you can either add a neg and create more shadows on that side of her face, or put a little light and then remove, or a white bounce, for example, and remove some of those, some of the shadows on her face. But to me, that was pretty good. That corner was pretty dark, and I knew I wanted to put some light source on there just to make that bookshelf kind of come out a little bit more. But what happened is, because of that black wall, and I wanted to keep the black wall. Like, imagine if this frame was cut this way, and you don't have this black wall. It just makes the room a lot flatter. It looks so much more flat because you don't see the end of that wall. So it was important for me to keep the corner, to actually keep the black wall. What I didn't anticipate is how much light the black was going to absorb. Originally, I had the 200x setup for the corner, and I put the 360C as a key light. And when I turned the 200X on, I would go to 100%, and you could barely see anything change over there because the black wall was absorbing all the intensity of the light. So we swapped it. We put the 200X as the key light because I knew I didn't need a lot because the window was so big. I just needed to enhance it a little bit. And then we put the 360C back there. And I turned it on and cranked it as much as I needed to. But then you can tell that it has a little bit of a warmer tone because, again, I think that black wall and wanting to create a separation here, I felt like by adding a little bit of warmth to that light was creating a little something different than the rest of the picture. And so I actually set the 360C at 3800 Kelvin. And I don't have the intensity on this picture. I don't remember what it was. My guess is it was close to 100%. Intensity wise, because again, that black wall is really absorbing a lot of light intensity. But just to show you, everything is at 56K in this room, but I had to go to a 38K just in order to get a little bit of a warmer feel in that corner. But again, I like it. I think it looks great. It just adds a little something versus the same color throughout the back of the image. If you found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's really helpful. And in the comments, let me know how you normally tackle stepping into a room for the first time prior to a shoot. How do you approach, figure out your shots, your composition, your framing, and your lighting choices? Thanks again for watching until the end. I really appreciate it. Happy filming.